Session is going to talk about what philanthropy can learn from Silicon Valley. So please help me welcome Anita Rehman, partner at Celesta Capital, Raju Reddy, founder and CEO of Sierra Atlantic, and Manu Chopra, CEO of Karya. Welcome, you guys.
Yep. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anita Rehman. I'm a partner at Celesta. Our session today is about the rise of the philanthropreneur. And we're asking the question if India's philanthropy can adopt the same speed, experimentation, and risk-taking that made Indian tech a global force. And equally, what can entrepreneurs learn from philanthropy about building for dignity, resilience, and inclusion? I'm here, and I'm joined by people who've actually pounded the pavement, real journeys in the streets of India, in the villages of India. And they've experimented and they've built. And we want to ask them what practical lessons we can carry back to Silicon Valley and to India alike. And so please join me in welcoming Raju Reddy. Raju is a pioneer in combining entrepreneurship with rural transformation. After building and scaling Sierra Atlantic, he co-founded the Kakatiya Sandbox in northern Telangana. In the last decade, it has touched 2.6 million lives, becoming an ecosystem for rural innovation. And Raju just mentioned that they had an AI workshop in one of the regions a few weeks ago.
Yeah, just exactly 2 weeks ago in Nizamabad.
Yeah. And he claims, or actually he said that it could rival an AI workshop in India, which is, I mean, in Silicon Valley, which is pretty remarkable. And then we have Manu Chopra. Manu thinks he's too old and he hasn't achieved enough. But Manu is one of India's youngest and boldest voices in philanthropreneurship. As co-founder and CEO of Karya, he is proving that India can lead the world in ethical data work, giving disadvantaged communities dignified pathways out of poverty by powering the AI economy. He's a Stanford-trained computer scientist. He has a pretty incredible backstory, which I just got to know a little more. And Manu has been innovating since high school when he invented an anti-molestation device, later co-founded CS and social good at Stanford. And he studied computer science at Stanford. Today, he's building a model where technology and dignity go hand in hand. So please join me again in welcoming up my two panelists. So let's start by hearing your stories. And Manu, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your fascinating childhood, what you just mentioned outside, and then tell us a story about Karya. What inspired you to start so young, and what's been the biggest high points and biggest challenges so far?
Such an honor to be here. I think I really want to thank everyone at Indian Diaspora and IPA for throwing this event. I think it means so much to all of us that we have this community we can go to and learn from. It's also an absolute honor to be on the same stage as both of you. My story is long, so to make it short. I grew up in Delhi. I grew up in a part of Delhi called Shakur Basti. I am in many ways a product of scholarships and philanthropy and kindness of people I've never met. I always say I'm a product of irrational compassion, which I think is something that I have received and so many of us have received from so many people in the room. So I think from the high school I went to, the reason I speak English is I went to, the local school was run by a trust in Bikaner called the Bagrodia Trust. To the scholarship I got that took me to a private high school in Delhi, to the many scholarships I got that got me to Stanford, to how hard my parents worked, like so many factors that are beyond our control as individuals, right? And I just feel like to whom much is given, much is expected, right? Which is why so many of us in this room choose to spend our time by giving. There's a lovely book outside that I think it's incredible. I was just reading it, and it is such a beautiful book that I feel like truly symbolizes how I feel about how we should be spending our time. I graduated in 2017. I always say I ran back home because 4 days after I graduated, I started Karya with two of my co-founders, Vivek, who had similar story, did his PhD from Carnegie Mellon and moved back to India to tackle poverty. And my third co-founder, Safia, who had spent 10 years in the UN and then moved back to India to work with us. I think for me, what we do at Karya is fundamentally about looking at a community slightly differently. Like, I don't think we work with low-income communities. We work with high-talent, low-opportunity communities, right? Talent is universal, opportunity is not. And the AI sector is going to create entirely new opportunities. And our goal is to use the AI revolution to bring accelerated earning and learning opportunities to our communities, right? So we connect we work with over 130,000 people today across every state in India, across most districts in India, actually. We bring them work and learning opportunities from the world's top AI labs. So we connect them to work from DeepMind and Microsoft Research and OpenAI and Anthropic and all these amazing AI companies. And we're able to pay them 20 times the minimum wage for doing this work on their smartphones in their homes. And because we're employing our communities to build frontier AI, these AI models work better for our communities, right? If you truly want to build inclusive AI, you have to employ the communities you want to include, right? We just did, Yamini was talking about how AI models have bias in an earlier session. This is well known. Like, if I go to a translation service provider and I say the doctor is coming or the boss is coming in Hindi, it will translate as boss aa raha hai, assuming that the boss is a man. I can say the boss is coming and her name is Anita, and it will revert back to the male translation, ignoring the explicit assignment of gender. And models do that because the data sets that the models are built on are biased, right? And the way to fix that, we did this massive project with the Gates Foundation, where we employed, for this one project, 30,000 low-income women. We actually partnered with the Sandbox to actually make that happen for the Telugu language. And we were able to build the largest open source gender intentional AI data set that we have. And the resulting model just has less bias. And we proved that it has less bias, right? And I think the core of what we're trying to do at Karya is prove that we can build a new AI economy. That doesn't just mean a few people getting rich in the valley, but that actually means AI working for all of us. The highest point so far has been, we have one of our workers is Baby Thai. She's one of our stars. She made $800 in her first 20 hours working at Karya. She was building a financial data set for Microsoft Copilot. When Satya came to India last year, he got to meet Baby Thai.
How old is Baby Thai?
Baby Thai must be in her 50s, I would say.
That's
I don't know her
fantastic.
exact age. but Satya got to meet Baby Thai. They were on the stage
this is
together.
Satya Nadella.
This is Satya Nadella.
Yeah.
Sorry. In the world that I come in, there's only one Satya.
Fair enough.
He is the truth. So he got to meet Baby Thai. God bless him. He was so kind to her. They chatted for like 20 minutes. He thanked her for her contributions to Microsoft's products as one of the builders of AI. If you go to the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, which for like nerds like me is like our mecca, there's a wall that credits the humans of AI, and Baby Thai is on the same wall as Alan Turing.
Oh,
right?
that's fantastic.
So,
that's incredible.
So I think so much of that story is just like, that's what we want to do. Like, I would like to see panels where I'm not on the stage and like our communities are talking about, the impact of the stuff. Biggest challenge right now is convincing companies that our workers can do this work, right? So I was on this call with a very senior speech scientist with one of our clients. It was a virtual call, and like somebody went in the back, and this person said, "Oh, you have to come and meet Manu. He works with all these low IQ people in India." And I had to be like, no, sir, low income people in India. He's like, yeah, same thing. Come meet him, right? And again, I really need to reiterate, this was not racism. This person was not being, like, it was a Freudian slip. This is a very, very, very good human being who's worked with us, who is a good person. But in the back of our head, we sometimes assume that just because someone is low income, they can't do really complex work. And this work was complex. It was LLM evaluation pays $25 an hour. There are data companies in the valley that hire PhDs to do it. And I'm telling you that, hey, our workers can do it at a better accuracy and have data to back it up. But there is a mental bias that we all have. And it's not just like America, India. We have it in India. Like, I have similar conversations in Bangalore. But that's what we have to tackle. So that's that.
I'm just going to ask one question there. That sounds orthogonal. So if I was evaluating you as a deal, I'd be like, how is someone who's from a low-income community able to perform better than a PhD?
Great question. A couple of reasons. First is just language, right? Because it is their language. In India, language and culture intersect beautifully, right? So our workers will say things like, well, I like that the money I'm making through Kare, that's fine, but I'm actually teaching computer how to speak my language, right? Our workers will say things like, I have the same respect for my language as I have for my parents, right? In so many languages in India, people can still file their taxes online. Right, so they actually have to. I mean, these are things that that really matter to our communities. That's one.
I see.
Second is opportunity cost. This is our community's only shot to be making this money, so they take it very seriously.
Right.
Versus for the PhD, this is a hobby, and rightfully so. You know what I mean. And third is we train them. Right, like we built complex skilling programs funded by so many people in the room that have allowed us to give them the highest quality education to do this work. Right. So I think all our communities deserve is an opportunity. And they will surprise us, right? Like I think that's why they're able to, and we've published like over half a dozen research papers comparing the accuracy and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's incredible, incredible work. Thank you. Thank you for that. And so then we move on to our equally or more impressive entrepreneur, Raju, who built Sierra Atlantic, as I mentioned earlier. So Raju, tell us what moved you from scaling a global tech company to building a sandbox in Telangana? And tell us again what inspired your leap and all of the highs and lows. Apparently there are no lows, but tell us anyway.
Well, again, thank you IPA and India Diaspora for bringing this community together, and thank you Anita for leading this. Yeah, I like many other tech entrepreneurs here, I grew up in a different India than the one that Manu talked about, of course. 40 years earlier, when pretty much all of us, the only, school education was in government schools. I went to a military school, Sainik school, Korukonda, and I could not get in the armed forces. That's why I decided to become an engineer. And I went to BITS Pilani and came here and, of course, moved here to Silicon Valley. And here you're surrounded by entrepreneurs. And one of the things I talk often is about the power of relatable role models. When I chose to be an entrepreneur, I heard stories like Kanwal Rekhi, Suhas Patil. I said, hey, if they can do, I can, perhaps. I think that's extremely important, even in the context of philanthropy. A lot of it is about getting people to sort of start believing it is possible for their lives. In particular, we're talking about the population that's mostly beyond the metros. All the sandbox work is beyond the metros. And so anyway, it was 2010 when Hitachi bought my company. At that time I was looking at kind of various things to do with India, and I wasn't too sure which model I would take. And then I had a good fortune of meeting Deshpande. Desh and Jayashree have been doing a phenomenal job. They started this model in Hubli, North Karnataka, the sandbox model of economic development. And I'll just talk a little bit about it. So whatever we are doing in Kakatiya, it's modeled after that in North Telangana. Kakatiya refers to sort of the golden era of Telugu rulers, 1100 to 1300 AD. That's why we named it after that. And at a high level, the kind of three main constructs, if you will. One, it is a bottom-up form of socio-economic development, meaning unless the local people are an active part of the solution, these changes are not sustainable. It can be somebody sitting in Hyderabad or Bangalore, let alone Silicon Valley. We can all play an important role, catalyze, inspire, obviously provide capital, all of that. So a lot of my time and what we do in the sandbox also goes into building that local capacity. Just as an example, today, there is a Thai chapter in Nizamabad. It's the smallest city anywhere in the world. It's about a 5 to 6 lakh population. Smallest city anywhere in the world with a Thai chapter. A very vibrant Thai chapter, right? So that's just to give you a sense of how the local community has come together and to create something like that. And so that's one aspect. Second is using an entrepreneurial mindset to addressing social challenges. I suppose that's kind of the crux of our topic today. And as Desh often talks about, if you can combine the compassion of the non-profit world with the execution excellence of the for-profit world, that's when you get outstanding results. And third is scale. Country of 4 billion people, there are a lot of people who are doing wonderful work in one village at a time here and there. God bless them, that's great. But unless you touch a large population, you don't make a meaningful difference. So typically in the sandbox model, we pick roughly about 10 million people. That's the population where we started. Today, gradually, based on the market demand, some of that has moved on to the neighboring districts. Actually, Nizamabad is like a wonderful microcosm of India. It's in Telangana, shares a border with Maharashtra and Karnataka. So I would say the impact region is roughly about 1% of India's population. Doesn't mean we have touched all those lives, not at all. We're far from that. We have a long way to go. But still, I think it's been about 12 years since we started. I started this along with another tech entrepreneur by name Fanindra Sama, who built a company called Red Bus in India that some of you may have heard about. And so it's been a great journey. And so far, I spend a lot of time. I just came back from India over the weekend. I go there at least 4 to 6 times a year. And so it's been fantastic just to see the kind of impact on the ground. Yeah, what Anita is talking about is, she had a question saying, what are the highs and lows? I said, well, as an entrepreneur, we don't think about it as lows as much. Absolutely, there are challenges, no question about it. There are hurdles that you deal with because, if you start thinking about lows, running a business, non-profit, doesn't matter, right? There are a lot of, you can't get too far with it. That's kind of the mindset, I suppose, that, I've taken to this. And, so there are, challenges for sure. I think one of the earlier panels talked about it, the FCRA and some of these sort of changing guidelines. But frankly, we don't know what the policies, the regulation might be even from the US side, just in terms of capital that you're going to send abroad for nonprofits or any other cause, right? So I would say that's one of the big unknowns that we just have to deal with it as they come. But that's kind of what the sandboxing is all about.
That's terrific. I think across the two of you, one word that I heard come across pretty clearly was compassion. And the term that you used, Manu, was irrational compassion. And so that's a really large force of good in this world. So to move on from there then, and I'll ask this of both of you, and you can answer, both of you can answer it if you want. In startups, we talk about product market fit. But what does philanthropy market fit look like? And do you actually actively measure that? Have you found it at Karya and Kakatiya? And how did you know?
Yeah. So I'll give you just one example of one of the programs that we have. Like I said, everything we do is about improving income level in rural India in a close-knit geography. So one of the programs we do is around skilling. This is skilling with a focus on employability. A lot of these college students who, several of them, they graduate, but they don't have a job. So effectively, over the last 10 years, there are about 20,000 of them that have graduated and have been placed in various jobs. So today, that's generating roughly about 800 crores, I would say, income that goes back into the villages largely. Typically, the women, they send about 2/3 of the money back to their families. The men send about 1/3 of their money. That's been kind of the typical trend. Yeah. So that's, I think it says a lot. And right now, we believe we can take that up about 10 times over the next 5 years. And a lot of the demand is not coming just from, in our region. Others, including actually the government, the CM of Goa visited, Hubli. The Chief Minister of Telangana, he met us, and these are all inbound. It's not, interest, right? So they want to roll out these programs in other parts of the states and all of that, other parts of the country. And the other thing in our model, typically we require the beneficiary to pay some portion of it. Fine, we can make exceptions when necessary, but I think there's probably no better measure of saying that, this is serving a meaningful, useful purpose, right? When you talk about product market fit. And ideally, if this thing works well over the next 10 years, 20 years, whatever reasonable period of time, we should become irrelevant, right? The market forces should be able to take over this. That's kind of the philosophy with the sandbox model. Again, when you're doing things that all about improving income level, you can do that. I understand there are certain nonprofit, initiatives that may not lend themselves to free market solutions, but I think that's kind of, what we've been seeing over the last, a few years. Just another thing, when we started Kakatiya Sandbox, it's all North Telangana, But we had some students that came from Nanded, which is a neighboring state and district in Maharashtra. And now some of the local, based on their success, the local colleges in Nanded came to us and they are working with us to roll it out. So to me, those are all good evidences of finding a real product market fit, I would say, or a market fit.
Fully aligned, right? I think, fully aligned with what Raju sir said. Oh wow, someone said Raju's socks to what are some strengths of Silicon Valley that would be great to bring to the philanthropic sector. I agree, I concur. On a serious note, right, I think as we start looking at, we are in a very difficult time in global philanthropy, right? Because of a lot of changes happening in this country, and those changes will have huge consequences, to say the very least, but they're all above my pay grade, right? So what I focus on is, if you're looking at a situation where global philanthropy coming into India is going to be challenged for many reasons, you need to have other sources of revenue. One of our friends, Ripple Works, is this incredible organization. I'm sure many of us have heard of them. They have an entire model on how they judge which nonprofits they will invest in. And one of the models is streams of income, right? What are some non-philanthropic streams of income you have? So for nonprofit founders in the room, I would encourage you to consider earned revenue. Like Raju sir said, some models that's easier than others, right? At Karya, for example, for every dollar we get from a donor, last year, $4.2 went to wages in workers, right? Because for every dollar we get from a donor, we invest it in our capacity to build AI models, to fine-tune models, and we get commercial contracts from Googles and Anthropics and OpenAIs, and that leads to $4.2 in wages to workers. This year's goal is to make it 6x, next year's goal is to make it 10x, to a point then we don't need philanthropic subsidy. So there are models that rely entirely on earned revenue that fix market failures in temporary moments in time till the point that the market failure is actually solved, which is what you're talking about. There are also other ways to do things. One of the mistakes we made at Karya is we didn't work with the government on day one. We worked with government maybe on day 10. And I wish we had worked with the government from the starting.
Why is that, Manu?
Why didn't we work with the government is just like there was just so much to do. And why would I recommend working with government on day one is because, especially in India, which I think is the context we all share, the water is really warm. The government's been incredible support, both as a payer at scale. The government of India is spending $1.5 billion a year in the most progressive AI policy I've seen in any single country in the world. The American AI policy is a joke. If you didn't have a good private sector in this country, nothing would work, right? But the Indian government AI policy, I would argue, is better than our private policy. Why?
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't want to spend time talking about the India AI mission, but the India AI mission is spending $1.5 billion in open sourcing data sets. So we've actually identified languages where AI models don't work as well. And we've literally, the bureaucrats in question looked at what are areas where market failure is likely to happen, where the ability to pay does not exist today. And we've actually open sourced tens of millions of hours of data, just free of cost for any startup in the country to use. And then now model providers are building on top of that. We are spending taxpayer money into improving the capacity of Indian AI startups to build open source AI models. What they're doing on compute, what they're doing on AI literacy, what they're doing on AI upskilling, all of it, in my humble opinion, and I'm not involved with this is not me advertising for anything we do none of this, has been done by incredible bureaucrats who don't get to come on stages like this and talk about, the work they do, though they should. And I think it is a phenomenal, if you want to feel patriotic for a second, just read the AI mission policy, because it is written by computer scientists. Let's just start there, right? The top 3 people in positions of power in the IT ministry are all computer scientists.
That's
right?
incredible.
And they're all lateral entries into the government bureaucracy. And they've done phenomenal work, right? And I think that to me is so exciting. Government as a payer at scale is a huge possibility in India. There was a time when we started Karya, someone just told me, don't try getting money from government, it doesn't work. And today the government of India is actually our second biggest client after Google, right? And the way they're going, they'll soon become our biggest client. And I think that's very exciting. Government also support in kind. So I know of so many education nonprofits where governments will give teachers or governments will give access to schools and facilities, right? So that's very powerful. Government declaring your nonprofit work as priority also opens doors to other philanthropic funding, right? Which is to say, as we start looking at non-philanthropic sources of revenue for nonprofits, we have to look at government or earned revenue or other things wherever possible, if possible. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I have to just add to that to say that, it is indeed a matter of national pride. I've stayed for over 25 years in Silicon Valley, and I went to India for the last 2 years. And in the last 6 months, as a result of all of the issues and all of the geopolitical issues and the storms around, the globe, I have not seen the Indian government move at such unprecedented speed to develop science and technology in the country. And we have Mihir here from Nishit Desai, and we've been working closely with him with Mr. Desai and the Indian government. And they allocated, in a matter of months, I mean, we've been talking to them about this for years, so it took them some time to listen, but once they decided, they allocated $12 billion, and then they're going to distribute that in about 4 to 5 months. And I haven't seen this happen in the last 2 years that I've been on the ground here. So there is a lot, of commendable work happening in the country. Terrific. So let's move on. And you, both of you touched upon this a little bit, and it seems like you do measure metrics as you build your, your organizations. How are you obsessive about tracking metrics and building out your organizations, or at some point does that kill the soul of giving?
Well, I think the question there is more about how well and how accurately are you collecting the metrics. When you're dealing with initiatives that are sort of beyond the metros, in the rural areas, working with farmers and in the villages. I think that's the bigger challenge. But whether you should do, absolutely, I think you should. I mean, how else are you going to measure the progress that you're making? I mean, in some ways, the for-profit world, right, it's very Darwinian. If you don't deliver the results, you don't survive. But in the non-profit, who are you trying to impress? I mean, you're really the person that's, it's really your donors that you're trying to sell this to, right? And so, yeah, I would say it is very important, but it's oftentimes it's more challenging as to how you collect these metrics when you're out in the villages and, those kind of things. But otherwise, yeah, the need doesn't really, kind of dissipate in any form.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'll just quickly add, this may be the wrong thing to say, but both Raju sir and I and so many of us in the room are giving our life to our work, right? Like this is all we do. You know what I mean? Like we all work 100-hour weeks or 200-hour weeks or 300-hour weeks or just like this is, or less. We should not be overworking ourselves. I get cancelled tomorrow. Oh no. But I think we are giving this work our entire being. Research and M&E and monitoring and evaluation is the only way to know that our models are actually working. Like I distinctly remember before our first RCT results from JPAL came out, I didn't sleep that night because I was just like, I've seen anecdotal evidence that Karya works. I've seen anecdotal evidence that giving money to families work, but it means nothing to me as a researcher unless I have an external researcher like JPAL or like Dalberg or like 3IE, that is telling me that, hey, we did an independent impact evaluation and this is what we see as positive. So I mean, I recognize there are problems with those institutes in that an RCT is really expensive. And it evidence of scale costs a lot of money. Like we had to raise a lot of money to do our RCT with JPAL. But once the results are positive, I think it unlocked so much more evidence-based philanthropy,
right,
which is the way to go for all of us.
Terrific. My next question is about philanthropy. And what lessons do you wish you knew earlier?
The ones that I want to say, I don't want to say. But I should have prepared for this question. But look, I think
it was on your sheet.
It was on my sheet. You're seeing a pattern here. Raju sir, what do you think?
Well, you're the younger guy, so you have to.
Look, I think I think as a young leader, I'm learning to be like we did this exercise with Britspan earlier this year that I got a lot of value out of. I don't know how many people in the room work with Britspan, but they helped plan our 5-year strategy, right, going into the future. And in the process of that, I had to unlearn a lot of like assumptions about my own leadership. I don't want to call them out because they're too personal, but in general, I think our donors want us to succeed. You know what I mean? Like our donors are deeply committed to seeing the models they invest in succeed. A lot of our early donors forced us to do things that in the moment felt, why are we doing this? But in hindsight, feel phenomenally useful, right? So I think in general, my advice to myself, like if I would just do is be a river, right? Like some of these things that happen for a reason, they happen for a reason. We have donors who have very strong ecosystem point of views. Like they build a thesis about a sector and then try to place nonprofits into their thesis. Right. And I used to think that isn't the best way to allocate money. I actually now have done a full flip 180. I feel that's a phenomenal way to give money because it forces orgs to collaborate with each other. And yeah, so I think in general,
So listen to your donors?
You have to listen to your donors, but like the donors also are very, very, very good at what they're doing, which I always knew, but I just have so much more respect for the advice we got in year 1, year 2 from very senior donors in the space, and I'm so glad that we had to listen to them. Like we didn't have an option, but I'm so glad we listened to them because we are a much better org for it.
Yeah. If I can add to that, one of the things, I guess it's also kind of the topic here about how what you learn as an entrepreneur, Silicon Valley applies to philanthropy, but much like we talk about corporate culture, how do you attract, nurture, retain great talent? That's immensely important in the nonprofit world also. And more so when you're working in the rural areas, the beyond the metros, the small towns and all that. I mean, today we have about maybe 700 employees between Hubli and Telangana where we operate collectively. I'm talking about the overall Deshpande Foundation entities. I would say about 90% of them are actually coming from the villages, where we are working with them. Many of them are actually beneficiaries that have moved on to sort of into management roles and all of that. And this could be like a daughter of a marginal farmer or a BD worker, somebody who comes from a very difficult economic background, and he or she has sort of gone through the programs and seen the impact. And they are actually also the trainers for the skilling programs. So that, in some ways, is the secret sauce, I would say, that we have learned. Sometimes there's a tendency to think, oh yeah, IIT, BETS, ISB, whatever, right? Heck no, not at all. I mean, yeah, you need some of that. But for each one of them, there are plenty of them from these villages, that actually have the context, right, for what we are doing, that the folks from urban India cannot replace. So that, I would say, is immensely important, at least when you're working in the sort of rural areas. Yeah, that's something I've learned. Yeah.
Fully agree. And I also, one thing I'll add is that, one thing that I'll add is that as young entrepreneurs, especially coming from the Valley system, we assume that the problems we see in India are information asymmetry problems, right? Where every day I meet some young person who's like, here's information. If we could just get this information to people, things would be better. Mm-hmm. We don't have information asymmetry problems in India or across the global south. We have power asymmetry problems, right? And they're very intentional power asymmetric choices that we have built, which is to say, so many times just building an app or building an AI model or building a chatbot is not the solution, right? I recently had a very famous donor ask me how I thought AI would help end the caste system in India. And I had to be like, don't think that's happening, right? Because it's not an information asymmetry problem, it's a power asymmetry problem. Which is to say, it goes back to the point you're making, right? Which is that there are actually these micro choices we can make in how we run an organization or how we actually invite philanthropy into our organizations that can tackle that power asymmetry. And the second you tackle that power asymmetry and you hire the people from local communities instead of the IIT or BITS graduate, nothing wrong with them, but you know what I mean? Like that's where you start tackling those problems.
Yeah. Can I just add to that? Yeah. So one of the things sort of our belief is that, for India to become an economic superpower, the districts of India have to become the engines of economic growth. And that's not going to happen just by creating employment opportunities for people there. Certainly a absolutely necessary part of it. But many of these people can actually become the job creators of tomorrow, right? So I would say that's really where the huge hidden opportunity is for India. So,
Yeah, you mentioned that. And so I think we have a few minutes left. And so Q&A, I'm going to ask them one question. And it's open-ended, and then we can take Q&A. So if you had 1 billion, I wrote rupees, but if you had $1 billion to deploy tomorrow in India, no strings attached, where would you put it and why?
1 billion rupees to dollars, that's a big shift.
$1 billion.
Raju, so we are fundraising.
Yeah, I know. So, one of the things that I've been spending a lot of time, I didn't talk about all the programs within the sort of the sandbox model that Desh had started, is also about startups. So there are about 500 startups that have gone through the Deshpande startup program. And there, we are focused on startups that are addressing the opportunities of rural India, and also at the college level, nurturing that spirit of entrepreneurship, knowledge, and all of that early on in the college, in these communities where we operate, in the remote areas, right? So today there are about 500 startups that have gone through the program over the last 10 years that are incubated, out of which about a third of them are still, active. And the top 10 probably produce about 200 crores of revenue, and the rest of them collectively produce about another 1,000 crores of revenue. So that's a very, very tangible impact. Most of that actually happened in the last 5 years. So personally, people kind of forget, we all think about India as an active startup ecosystem, which it is today. But 10 years ago, we were struggling. All the venture funds, everyone was struggling. There really weren't that many exits. So a lot of things changed just in the last 10, maybe 15 years at the most. And, so I feel there is a similar opportunity now for the districts of India. There's a lot of talent. There are probably half a dozen Manu Chopras hiding in one of these 800 districts of India, each district, right? Can we nurture them? Can we identify, nurture them, and help them become the job creators of tomorrow? So that is where I would sort of apply my dollars, my talent, whatever, network, everything. Because if they can, in many ways, Sandbox is not about solving a particular problem as much as creating a lot of problem solvers. And the best problem solver, maybe a biased opinion, entrepreneurship, to create, jobs and everything else. So that's where I would.
Somewhat similar for me as well, right? Like, look, I think if you can change who has wealth in society or who gets to have wealth in society, we can change who gets to have power, right? And I think if every community, irrespective of their gender, caste, creed, sexuality, all of these things, got a fair shot at making wealth for themselves, we would be living in a much more fair world. So I would be very interested in market-driven philanthropic solutions, which are solutions basically where a nonprofit is investing in the capacity. There's obviously Karya, but there's so many other organizations that do similar work in the arts and crafts sector, in the handicraft sector. And I think I'd be very, very interested in nonprofits that bring people work opportunities wherever they are, like in their homes, in these communities, because then you can truly make it extremely democratic. Like we have 209 million women in India who report that they don't leave their homes more than once a day. That means there are more women confined to their homes in India today than there are people in all but 10 countries in the world. That stat is from the NSS Time Use Survey from 2019. These are Government of India data points, right? And when you ask them, why don't you leave your home, or why don't you get to leave your home, the answers are, log kya kahenge, what will people say? Even if I wanted to go, There's
Where
no
do I go?
where do I go? There's no safe public transport for me to go.
Right.
And if you're able to provide dignified work opportunities to people where they are, like you can actually help them make a significant amount of money in their homes, and then suddenly the social sanction and the power dynamics in a household change.
Right.
Because the woman member of the household is actually now the richest member of the family, and then suddenly she decides whatever she wants to do, she can do. Right? So I think to me it goes back into, can I create systems that change who gets to have wealth? It should be a fair shot, like universal basic opportunity, right? Not outcomes, just opportunities.
That's tremendous. Well, we'll now turn it over to, we wrap it up. Okay, well, any last points for either of you to,
Well, one, I just wanted to say, the difference you can make is very real. With little interventions, there's a huge impact that you can make. And for those of you who may be looking to, but anyway, I encourage you to just go visit some of these programs, whether Karya or Sandbox model, either in Hubli or in Telangana, when most of you travel to India. So just take a day out. If this interests you, go see the people, meet the people, and talk to the beneficiaries and the folks. I think that's a great way to get started. Yeah. Thank you.
I agree.
thank you so much. Thank you.